Everyone comes to that question eventually, at some point or another. Nihilism can become a very attractive answer in that basically life is meaningless, so why bother? You shouldn't bother because life is meaningless. What's the point of improving yourself or striving towards any goal if it's all pointless? You should just do whatever you want, whenever you want, no matter what, right? And while I do somewhat agree with nihilism in that I believe that life doesn't come with any sort of inherent meaning, I think that nihilists are just one step short of the truth, which is that the pointlessness is the point, in that it's an opportunity, right, for you to make the point, right? It's like life is like a game, and the objective is up to you. The objective is what you make it, right? And that is the point. Jordan Peterson's answer to the question of why bother with self-improvement it hits the nail on the head for me. He said that we should improve ourselves so that we don't suffer any more stupidly than we have to, and so that maybe others don't have to either. Growth without purpose, it's kind of like cancer, right? But growth for the purpose of reducing unnecessary suffering and pain is admirable, undoubtedly admirable. So if we know that there is an admirable reason to work on ourselves and that we can choose that reason to be our own purpose because we are the architects of that, then the next question obviously is how. And while there are many ways to work on yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually, Jordan Peterson says that very frequently when he's talking to his patients to help them get started on the process of working on themselves, he helps them to expand their perception of the limitations of their being. In other words, he says that your environment, for as much as you are responsible for it, is an extension and a reflection of you. So if you work on your environment, right, you're sort of working on yourself, on your mind, on your organization, right? So, and he says that because everyone can clean their room. Most people have a room and everyone can clean it. He says to stay within the domain of your own competence. He says you don't just walk up to a helicopter that's not working and start tinkering away. You're probably going to make it a lot worse. But everybody can clean their room, so what a great starting point. And that's why I put in some footage of me just doing just that today. I've been focused really heavily on my videos and coming up with ideas and recording and editing. It's been very time consuming and my room has become a mess. And so today I thought I would include that in the work that I'm doing and tie it in. As well as acting on Peterson's advice, implementing Stoic practices in my life has been one of the ways that I've been working on myself in all three of those areas. Developing discipline comes to mind as the best way that I can conceive of to work on myself while also staying within the domain of my competence. We've talked about discipline a few times in the 19 videos I've come out with so far, and I'm sure we'll talk about it many more times in future videos. Discipline is, in my view, the keystone of personal development. We can work on developing discipline all day, every day, if we understand how to. It has been shown that on average, we have roughly 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day, and that about 80% of those thoughts were negative, and around 95% of them were the same as the previous day. What does that mean? Are we just walking around all the time thinking of every horrible outcome that might come around every corner? Yeah, pretty much. And that makes a lot of sense from an evolutionary standpoint, because historically, this is what we've had to do for many millions of years. What we've had to do since before our own humanity. And through meditation, we can begin to guide our minds to healthier and healthier patterns of thought. And I'm not talking about us sitting down in the lotus position, repeating mantras, Om Mani Padme Hum. We can meditate anywhere, anytime, simply by focusing on what we know we should focus on. If you have a negative thought, understand that it's most likely just the result of an ancient and overactive defense mechanism that is deeply ingrained in our DNA. By doing this, we realize that most of our thoughts aren't even true. And if you ignore them, they will soon be replaced by more positive ones. Whereas if you engage in those negative thoughts, they will create negative emotions. And the negative emotions will ultimately result in more negative thoughts, creating this horrible feedback loop of a downward spiraling mood. Doing this successfully over long periods of time takes discipline. But doing it at all builds discipline, because it is a difficult thing to do. There's a saying that where attention goes, energy flows. And that is what we need to do with our thoughts. Do not give unhealthy, negative thoughts any more attention than you absolutely have to. And focus more on the healthy ones. The more we do this, the more we tip the scale of the ratio between good and bad thoughts toward good. The better we get at this exercise of controlling where our attention flows, the more areas of life it begins to affect. We can begin focusing more on the habits that help us rather than the ones that hurt us. More on the foods that make us stronger rather than the ones that make us weaker. More on the people who help us grow rather than the ones who hold us back. We can all do this if we just focus on doing it consistently. Discipline is the key, the door, the path, and the destination.